DFS, Alarm NBA DFS show with Jon Impemba and Jon Day.
What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. We got a big 9-game slate on a Tuesday. James, you did the playbook here today. How are we doing? Everything coming off a nice Christmas Day slate?
Fun Christmas Day slate, ending with a Luka 50 bomb. So that was pretty cool to see.
Nearly 100 fantasy points for Luka yesterday.
Not too bad. While we were recording the show, or before last night, I was like, I think Luka's probably going to be the next guy to score like 70 in a game. And I still stand by that. I think he's still going to be like the guy that goes out and just has one of those like 70 actual point games. But this 9-game slate's an interesting one. It's hard to like talk about a lot of things, John, because there is so much news that still has to break. Right. We got basically Bruce Brown out, and then every other player that has had a injury designation has been ruled in. Right. There was one downgrade. Killian Hayes was downgraded for like the third straight slate, was probable, and then downgraded to questionable. Yeah. Have to assume same trend is going to continue, and he's just not going to play again. And then
good for Jaden Ivey shares.
Yeah. Good for Jaden Ivey shares, for sure. But like, it is not fun right now because, you know, just face facts. The value sucks. Like, and salute to Albert. The value sucks. The value is just not.
We're waiting on like one name, I think, here today, right? And that's at center. Did we get the big news already?
No, I mean, well, like the Wemby news, the Vukovic news, Kawhi, Towns. There's like a bunch of like questionable. I mean, Portland has 2 guys potentially out here. Jalen Williams might not play.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of implications. The Vukovic news obviously is the biggest news of the day.
For us, at least, right? You know, because we want to play Andre Drummond, to your point, if Ayton is at, Duad Reith is under 4K. You can see a lot of people sort of gravitate to that situation here. But you're right. And this is what we've talked a lot about when it comes to the NBA DFS slate to this point in the year, unless there's been some like late scratches where, you know, DraftKings hasn't had time to previously react to a lot of this news. They've been better with their pricing. And you and I have talked about this. Like, I'm sort of grateful for that, you know, as somebody who doesn't make 150 lineups. I'll enter the 3 max. You and I will play the single entries. You know, tougher pricing makes it a little bit more competitive for lineup builds when, you know, the field doesn't have a free 3K player to throw in there and do all these things with it. You know, it makes you make some decisions on where you're going to go when it comes to your lineup and roster builds. You can't just throw SGA and, you know, Halliburton in there today, because then you're just, you know, putzing around with a bunch of 4K plays. Right. And you got to kind of hope and see that those guys come through for you. So, you know, it's interesting. It is 9 games. There's a lot more injury news to come out. Slate's locks at 7 p.m. There's 2 7 p.m. games here today. Orlando versus Washington and Brooklyn versus Detroit. Again, got the Killian Hayes injury news there being downgraded. So we do expect, obviously, some Jaden Ivey value to be there. But, you know, the rest of these games start at 8. And then we have the late night games, you know, 2 hours after the Houston Pacers game kicks off. You have Sacramento, Portland, as you mentioned. You know, 2 guys there, Shaedon Sharpe, DeAndre Ayton. Are they going to be in? They're going to be out. And then Charlotte versus the Clippers. You know, Kawhi Leonard waiting on, trying to figure out if Kawhi Leonard is going to be suiting up for this game or not tonight, because obviously that would impact, you know, someone like Amir Coffey that we could then throw into our lineup as a value play here this evening. So, as always, as we always say to you guys, if you're playing on these slates, you know, NBA, unfortunately, unlike other slates, other sports, you got to be around. You got to have your phone on you. You got to have notifications turned on. You got to be in our Discord. You know, we throw out the here's so-and-so is out, you know, and you got to be available to make those pivots, because if you don't, others are. And now you're, you know, behind the 8 ball sometimes. Sometimes the pivot chalk doesn't necessarily pan through either. But, you know, more often than not, you got to be flexible and leave some of that flexibility in your lineup, especially when there's multiple late games. When there's multiple late games with higher priced players like Sabonis, like De'Aaron Fox, like Paul George, like James Harden, you're going to want to have that availability to be a little bit more flexible. The Portland side, obviously, 2 guys out there getting an Anthony Simons if Shaden Sharp or Malcolm Brogdon, something like that. If Shaden Sharp is out, or being able to move Diop Reith into your lineup. So, as always, as we come back from a little bit of our Christmas break with the live stream, those of you who may be new to tuning into the show, it's just very important to be around for that roster management when it comes to the NBA DFS slate here. What's your overall key takeaway? What's your one game you're looking to target here tonight, James?
One game I'm looking to target is Atlanta, Chicago, and that's basically with or without the Vooch news, because I think obviously the Bulls are playing a pretty tight rotation to begin with.
Right.
And it's a massive pace-up spot and a great spot overall. And we've talked about, and we're here at point guard, so might as well just jump into it. We've talked about how good Trae Young's been in just kind of every facet of the game as of right now. Went through shoot-around. Now
got some shots up.
Yeah. Is he got shots up. What that means is obviously we don't know. We've seen a couple times in the last week or so, people have gone to shoot around and then just not played. And that's something that hasn't really happened in the past, but it's been happening in the last week.
And what does that mean? Does that mean he was aggressively working on a shot, or was he doing
using his left hand? Or
well, did you see the highlights of Nikola Jokic?
Oh, dude,
during the pregame warm-up?
I mean, what?
So he was literally doing that. He was doing one-handed left foot shots. He was doing over the backboard underhands. The headline of the video is can we just stop making this guy do pregame warm-up? Because he does not care. He does not want to be out there. He was just basically playing a game of horse by himself. Well, the team is
no pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. Right. Well, the team is actually in the layup line. Not Jokic. So what does that mean? What does get up shots mean? So Steph Curry gets up shots from the stands. See how far away he can hit threes. So
right. But if he play, I mean, obviously there's good for him to at least be on the floor.
Agreed. Yeah.
At least it's not did not attend shoot around or did not so if he's active and at this game already, I love the Chicago side. Getting to Trae would be good with me. No DeAndre Hunter, the likelihood of Jalen Johnson returning. We know how well they work together in pick and roll and pick and pop because Jalen Johnson can do both those things extremely, extremely well. So love Trae Young. He's probably my favorite spend up point guard. Between him, De'Aaron Fox, and SGA probably would be the 3 I'm targeting at this tier. And I know SGA maybe a little more contrarian because it's a really tough matchup against Minnesota, but dude, it just doesn't matter. He's gonna get to the line. He's gonna get to his spots offensively. And we've talked about it a couple times, especially when it comes to stars, and we've talked about it a lot, especially when it comes to stars. You can play stars at low ownership in tough spots because they're stars, right? SGA could score 50 actual tonight, and you and I would be like, yeah, that's in his bag. That.
He's averaging 32. He played them once. He went for 32, 4 and 4 in that game.
Right.
51.5 fantasy points. So, yeah, very much capable. I know our guy Hadley in our Discord asked our thoughts on betting Minnesota on the road here. I like OKC at home every time they're at home.
Right.
Obviously, the numbers don't really fall off for SGA there either. But this is going to be a competitive game. When you get a competitive game with SGA, you're getting 38 minutes and you're getting elite scoring. So, there's certainly that nice appeal. And we talked about this on the show this morning. On this slate, point guard is loaded. I don't think you can go wrong with really any of the top 10 guards that are listed here. Loved what you had to say about Trae Young. John Morant's here at $9,800. He's gone for over 50 now in 2 of the 3 games, including one of them in this spot. His return game was on the road in New Orleans. He hit the game winner in his debut game here on the road in New Orleans. Are you willing to go back to the Morant well? Do you find that this matchup, long term just isn't a great spot? Or is Morant another guy where it's he just rises above? He is Ja Morant, Yeah,
I mean, if you get to Morant, by all means, play Morant, right? If you don't have an extra $200 to get to Trae Young, I think a good consolation prize is Ja Morant, who's team's 3-0 since being back. He has 250 bombs, almost 260 bombs. The minutes are all the way up to 36. Who's to say if another competitive game he's not playing 38, just based on how minutes have been played around the league. Like, we have not seen stars play this many minutes in a long time, and I think that does have a lot to do with the new rules in place. I guess new rules, is way to put it. Now we're like 30 games into the year, just the rules in place. So yeah, if you get to Ja, I love De'Aaron Fox tonight against Portland. Like, Malik Monk is going to be back. I don't think that's a bad thing for Sacramento. It does not affect De'Aaron Fox at all. So he's a 1.4 fantasy point per minute producer. He's a 33% usage player. And he just has infinite upside against a Portland team that, is scuffling right now. In the month of December, they're 23rd in defense. This is a little bit of a pace down spot for the Kings. Kings are top 10 in offense or in pace, and Portland's 21st. But this total 236.5 is one of the best on the boards as well. 7.5 point road favorites is Sacramento. I do think that they being Portland can keep this game competitive, and if they do 9,500 for De'Aaron Fox, he can go for 60 tonight against the Portland team.
Yeah, no, I agree with you here. Obviously, we're talking the DraftKings main slate. Our guy Bowers in here letting us know that FanDuel clipped the late game.
Yep, they did.
So, we've talked about this on DraftKings here. They kept them in. FanDuel clipped them last week. Both sites clipped them. It's something certainly to be mindful of moving forward. It's unfortunate for the FanDuel slate because these last two games are pretty fun in terms of what you're getting with the DFS matchups here. So, Bowers and I know DePrince, who pops in chat every now and then, plays on FanDuel. At Beantown, looks like he may be playing on FanDuel as well. No, you're going to be missing out, unfortunately, on Kings, Blazers, Charlotte, Clippers. For better or for worse, I guess. You'll get some of that injury news out here early. The rostership obviously adjusts to those sites as well. Obviously, you guys know if you have questions on the FanDuel slate, certainly give us our way. Obviously, the analysis that we talk about with these players carries over, but your lineup construction is going to be varied now, knowing that those four teams aren't available to you. So definitely wish that these sites would get on the same page. It's tougher for us as content providers to have the juggle between the two. We are focusing on the DraftKings slate for the sake of the show here today, but don't worry, FanDuel people, if you do have lineup questions, player A, player B, throw them in chat. We don't discriminate. Happy to get in. There's the Prince. I knew he was lurking in the chat there. So again, guys, tough situation. It is what it is when it comes to FanDuel and DraftKings with these late slates. As we talked about it last week, some of those DFS touts, those social influencers were making some noise about how they hated that it wasn't fair to the casual fan to have these late slates on there, and now we've seen changes come the last couple of main ones. Going down into the mid-tier for point guard, you got to talk to De'Aaron Fox. You have Harden again, guys. If you're on DraftKings, Harden, Rozier. Both of those guys in good spots. Obviously, Harden in a better spot should there be no Kawhi Leonard tonight. Love Terry Rozier, obviously, given the spots here. Get with this matchup, given his production, just overall without LaMelo Ball, and the fact that if you look at the defense they'll be running up against, it's Russell Westbrook, it's James Harden, and Rozier's just on the floor. Regard played 35 minutes in a game they lost by 30 or 32. So, not too worried about the minutes with T. Rose here.
Yeah, and you talk about the Clippers defense in the month of December, John. Clippers are 21st ranked in defensive metrics. So it is a good spot for Rozier, a defense that the Clippers one time prided themselves on, no longer. Especially if there's no Kawhi, it's going to be harder for them to stop Rozier.
Agreed. Mid-tier, thoughts on guys like Van Vliet, Simons, Kobe White here tonight, Brogdon, McCollum. I know we have some value we'll talk about. I see Albert already mentioning the guy who is the highest projected rostered player on tonight's slate. But what are your thoughts here as we get to the middle?
I'm very indifferent about Fred VanVleet today. Really haven't been able to decide what I really want to do with Houston in general. I've more leaned towards the bigs. Tari Eason's expected to play, so that obviously can muddy that up. The one thing we do know is VanVleet's going to play a whole bunch of minutes. So if you want to rely on him being on the floor. It's a tournament play only, but this is obviously an elite environment for them. Massive pace up spot. And, Indiana plays no defense. So no problem getting to Van Vliet. Just do you get good? Do you get bad? He's not cheap. He's 8,400. So it's
I think if you're making multiple lineups, he's good to throw into one because you
Agreed.
could get 71, 63
Yep.
in these space up spots that he's going to be in tonight against the Pacers. Or we just see the other guys in that lineup go off like they have the last two games, and you get.
Right.
Here's the frustrating thing for me. I'm okay if he only goes for 10 points. Obviously, you want more, but where did the assist go?
Yeah.
Where did the assist go when his team's hanging 122 on Dallas? Obviously, 106. Like, how does he go 17 to 15 down to 4 and 3? Like, if you're not going to score, he should be facilitating as the point guard. If he's not doing that, what's he even doing on the floor? Like, what is it? What is Fred VanVleet doing out there? So, certainly a bit frustrating. Where are we going next here, James? Again, you on the playbook today. You got the mid-tier of the player pool coming out after the stream today. What guys are you finding to make your lineups tonight?
I'm okay getting to Cade at 83 in tournaments. I hope this is a competitive game. Hopefully Detroit doesn't break the record for most losses in a row. I love Anthony Simons. If Shaedon Sharpe and DeAndre Ayton sit, we're going to get so many shot attempts out of him. Pace up spot for Portland. So love Simons. Kobe White, with or without Vucevic, is a fantastic play. I know he's struggled a little bit lately. I know that San Antonio game, he shot the ball really well, but less than 40 fantasy points in 3 straight. We kind of need 40s to come back. But this is a spot, massive pace spot for Chicago.
Over 8 from 3 probably doesn't repeat. Now, he hasn't been a great 3-point shooter, but he's not 0 for 8 bad.
So. Not 0 for 8 bad. So I do like Kobe White. Obviously, the Brogdon situation is another one. Like, would love to get to Brogdon at 7,500 if we knew there was no Anthony Simon or Shaedon Sharpe and DeAndre Ayton. Yeah, both could lead to a lot more Brogdon production. And then I saw we had a question. Spencer Dinwiddie getting some ownership tonight. You and I talked about it on the show last night. No thanks for me. Especially with DSJ coming back. We talked about it a couple times. Like, his minute ceiling is just infinitely lower with DSJ back. And yeah. We've seen that the last couple games. But the Keontae George thing, there's nothing that has suggested he's going to be on a limit. We'll probably hear from head coach Will Hardy at some point about it. Mm-hmm. If there is a limit, no thanks at 64. If there's not, I mean,
my worry with him was that he had these games when Clarkson was out of the lineup. So you have Clarkson back in the lineup. Is he going to be able to shoot and score as much?
Right.
Now that Clarkson's back, that's my lone worry. Plus, Jaden Ivey is a couple $100 cheaper. We just saw Ivey in this matchup. We're thinking no Killian Hayes here. Now that game did have Cade Cunningham in foul trouble, but the matchup against Utah didn't, and he was just as good. So I think I would find myself saving a little bit of cash and going to Jaden Ivey over Keontae George because I just don't know what I'm going to get out of Keontae George right here. Plus, I mean, what do they do with Chris Dunn? I mean, like, does Dunn start still? Does he play? Town Horton Tucker's back too. Like, what's this whole team rotation going to look like?
Good luck figuring it out. I feel like here's the two things you can trust, right, about Utah. Clarkson plays 30 minutes. Markkanen plays 30 minutes. Everything else is a crapshoot. That's I would say that's probably the two things you can bank on: Clarkson and Markkanen, and everything else is like hot hand, maybe. Yep. I mean, who knows?
Albert following up here with a question on Nembhard. Nembhard currently projected to be the highest rostered player on tonight's slate. He's not that cheap. He's $5,000. He's on the road in Houston, which isn't a great matchup for many. Good chalk, bad chalk here, James.
I mean, it just comes down to like you look at the value tier as a whole. If you want to you put like blanket statement value tier. Mm-hmm. He played 36 minutes in that Orlando game a similar spot to Houston. Houston's been better defensively. They're second in the month of December. Who is playing 36 minutes in this tier? Or who has even like the opportunity to play 36 minutes? and he's on the best offensive team in this tier. Like in terms of when you factor in minutes plus the team he's on, that just goes to Andrew Nembhard. He's multi-position eligible. You can play him at point guard, shooting guard. It's obviously not a good spot, but like there is just not a lot else. Another person getting chalk, right? For example, getting ownership. Trey Jones at $4,800, who you and I told you I liked last night, but like you look at Trey Jones, what is Trey? Obviously, infinite better spot. Not going to deny that. What is Trey Jones' minute ceiling? You think in this? If like, what if Wemby plays? What is Trey Jones' ceiling? Because then they're fully healthy. Is it 24 minutes that his ceiling would be? Is it 20? Because he's not starting. I mean, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. Popovich is doing some wild stuff these days. But like,
I was gonna say, you have no idea what Greg.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea.
You're going to see Devontae Graham in the starting lineup here,
right? And then like so, Trey Jones is getting ownership. Let's see who else. Like Jalen Suggs might not play. Malachi Branham, we know there's like not like a ceiling on him.
Yeah, I always plug Malachi Branham in as like my value play because it does feel like the minutes are generally there for him. If it wasn't for the blow, he probably would have played more than the 24 minutes, I think. And this is a Utah matchup where I generally, again, one of those teams where I feel like you just bump up what the ceiling could be for a guy. But yeah, I mean, if we got this, that's great. 31, 24, 34. We get this, we're kind of like living with it. It's not been great. It hasn't been terrible. I like that he's giving you double figures in scoring every night here because I like guys that shoot. We talk about all that all the time here. So if he's going to shoot in this matchup against Utah and then there's no Wemby, I think the ceiling might be a little bit higher for him at 52.
I will respectfully disagree on the ceiling.
Okay. What do you mean? Well, what's your thoughts? I mean, he gave you 31 and 34. So what do you mean? What's your idea for a ceiling then? That's 6x. That is price.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying he's going to go for 50, but I mean,
I am less confident in Branham's minutes than I would be about Nembhard's tonight.
Okay.
And I think just in general, I mean, I think they're pretty similar in terms of like how many times they're going to shoot the basketball. I think Nembhard isn't going to go out and take 20 shots, but he's also not shy to shoot the basketball.
Sure.
I do think he's probably a little better peripherally, especially in the passing aspect. He's had 2 games of double-figure assists this year. I know Branham's approached.
Just very he had 8-7 wedge between a 0. So
yeah, it's like super. I would say if you want to take that duo and say, you know what, I'm going to leverage the field and play Branham, that's a fine tournament pivot because Nembhard isn't in a good spot. I just feel like ultimately better about what I would get, like just Nembhard being on the floor, right?
Sure.
Like I just feel knowing it's not Popovich. Now, Carlisle is a mad scientist, and
I was going to say, we've been burned by that plenty of times.
We have been burned by that plenty of times. It's just like there's been nobody worse than Popovich this year with like he's starting Justin Champagnie over Keldon Johnson for all.
We'll find out in
he did. Like that's just ludicrous. So I don't know. I still lean Nembhard. I like Nembhard. But Branham is like a fine pivot if you don't want to eat 50% Andrew Nembhard chalk.
Okay. Would you throw a tournament at Dennis Smith Jr. here?
It's a good spot. There's always blow up potential too, right? Like I'm not saying they're going to blow Detroit out, but like anytime.
This is a guy that gave us 40 in 20 minutes one time. So,
right.
Again, super boom bust tournament play, but you're looking for a guy with that high fantasy point per minute output. Certainly in that equation. Anybody else down here point guard for you?
Mm-mm.
You good?
Yeah, no.
Shooting guard then. Are you interested in Anthony Edwards against OKC tonight at $9,600?
I am highly interested if there's no Karl Anthony Towns.
Okay.
What's the usage? It's a big usage rate. And in the month of December, OKC is playing at the 4th fastest pace in the league. Mm-hmm. So this is Minnesota's 22nd. Now, again, like he's 9,600. It's not like this isn't like a free square. But we just saw like the offense just operates with like through Edwards without Karl-Anthony Towns, because you have the option to use Towns as a hub when they're both on the floor. Edwards does lead the team in usage bump when it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns being out the floor. Not a massive bump, but he does lead the team also in DK point differential. 1.4 fantasy points per minute, 35% usage rate for Edwards without Towns. I mean, 9,600, big pace up spot. OKC has been pretty good defensively, but Anthony Edwards is that dude. So 9,600 if
no
not
Jalen Williams, that obviously helps out
right.
a little bit. I know Dort's probably the guy that ends up covering Edwards in this game.
Yep.
But still not like the most elite defender. PG $8,700. And if Kawhi is out, or do you just like the matchup for him anyways?
Probably Kawhi being out.
Okay. We've talked obviously Rozier, Cunningham, Baines here at $8,200 coming off 2 monster games.
Who knows, man? Who knows? I kind of side with you, where you were like, yeah, kind of said nah to Bane, and then he said nah to me. He went for 50 plus in back-to-back games. Like now Marcus Smart's going to be back. Are they going to move Bane to the 3? Does Vince Williams come off the bench? Like, what's the route? Does Smart come off the bench? Like, what's their? I don't know. It's a. What if Jaren Jackson Jr. has a big game? Like, there's always a chance Bane could play third fiddle on a given night. So, 8,200 is a little. If you end up on Desmond Bane, by all means. But like, not gonna lie, for $100 less, and I talked about it already. But if I had 8,200 left, and I had choice between him and Simons, knowing that Portland could potentially be without 2 double-digit scorers on their team, Shaedon Sharpe and DeAndre Ayton, I wouldn't even think twice about who I'd be playing there, especially with, 30 plus like actual shot upside.
There's not even having Shaedon Sharpe be active.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't really matter. It just
doesn't really matter.
The shots are going to be there. It's just whether or not he hits the shots that night. Right. And I mean, we've been getting a lot more peripheral stats than I feel like I would have expected to get. I don't think you and I anticipated to be getting 6-7 assists like this on a nightly basis, for Anthony Simons here, but we are. So, I'm with you there. I think Simons for sure in a better matchup. Bane, maybe if you're stacking that one a little bit, obviously expensive to stack on a slate like this, but could find ourselves getting there. With Zion back in the lineup, do you have any interest in any of these Pelicans here?
Nah, I mean, you end up on them, they're safe.
Okay. DeJounte, if Trae Young was to happen to sit tonight, would probably pop some lists here.
He's going to be super chalk. I mean, Atlanta would be probably super chalk in general, right? Like that game would be sickening chalk. Like imagine Vooch and Trae sat in this game. That game would just be, you'd have 70% of every lineup would have
just a couple of these guys.
Bulls and Hawks. Like, it would just be, So definitely 7,800 is a great price.
Mid-tier range here: Cam Thomas, Jordan Clarkson, Devin Vassell.
I like Clarkson at 7,100. Came back, immediately plays 30 minutes, immediately scores 30 points. That's what he can do. And I know they're getting healthy, but been pretty confident in Clarkson's minutes. He obviously played only 27 in the Memphis game. He struggled in that game, but then he plays in the Clippers. They get blown out. He only plays 28 minutes. Then he gets hurt in OKC, and now he's back to just playing 30. I know they're healthy, but they're getting a bunch of guys back from injury, so maybe there's limitations elsewhere.
And it's a good matchup. I mean, it's better than some of the ones he ran into there. So, I'm fine going there. Obviously, Vassell, I think, would be in a great spot if no Wemby. That whole situation, much better opportunity for him against Utah to hang in a game and not get blown out, where you and I talked about this. When they get blown out, he only plays 30 minutes usually, right? Yeah. If they're ever in a competitive game, we've gotten 35 minutes out of him, and that obviously gives you the ceiling. So, and Utah is a team that brings ceiling performances out of a lot of these guys here. So, we definitely have some Vassell interest if Wemby was out tonight. For sure. We just got the Jalen Suggs news. He's going to play tonight, so I don't know how that impacts any of your Orlando, if you had any Orlando fun in your mind tonight against Washington anyways, maybe when we get to the forward spots, not necessarily the guards here, but them, THT, Bogdanovich is here at $6,500. He's obviously been playing really well. Any other 6K plays for you?
Yeah, Cole Anthony probably hurt the most from the Jalen Suggs stuff because Cole Anthony's minutes have already been, and Anthony Black for that matter, who's actually been playing some pretty good minutes. Both those guys super hurt by Jalen Suggs being in. It's Wednesday news. I mean, like, if you want to get to Jalen Green, he's kind of got a low floor, but he has also been really bad of late. But this is a spot that could promote a ceiling game.
Yeah.
I would be mildly more interested in Giddey if Jalen Williams were to sit, just with the playmaking that Josh Giddey can have. And Jalen Williams is like basically the second playmaker on a night-to-night basis, just with the way he drives and kicks or drives and attacks. I mean, Giddey had 340 bombs in his last 4 games prior to the injury, right? And then had 20 fantasy points in 14 minutes. Who's to say he doesn't have 35 fantasy points in 25 minutes, right?
I guess I don't know why the minutes are what they are.
Like, I mean, he's not good. He's not good defensively. I think that they just have different pieces, and I mean, Dagnall not afraid to literally. I mean, he's not taking Shea off the floor, but he's not afraid to take literally anybody else off.
I know.
Like, he will take anybody off the floor in order to match up best with an opposing team. Giddey's best chance probably at like staying on the floor would be Towns being out, because they're playing Kyle Anderson at the 4. So maybe like, hey, that's one guy you can actually stay in front of, Kyle Anderson. Yeah. Like, Anderson's slow, and there is a high ceiling even in limited minutes for Giddey if you want to get there. 59. Same thing can be said kind of for Trey Murphy. High ceiling at 58.
If Kyle was out, I'd like playing Norm against Charlotte at 56.
Agreed.
That feels like a pretty good spot
for
him.
Just need to have the pivot. Just need to have the pivots, obviously, right? You just need to have the. Yeah.
Yep. Agreed. You talked about Caruso. Feels pretty safe at $5,400 just in their starting lineup. And then if Vucevic was to be ruled out, maybe like there's something there for him for sure. Any of these other indie guys? I mean, you talked Nembhard already, but Heald, Mathurin, like, did any of them get a bump at all or value boost for you?
Oh man, I mean, dude, look at the Mathurin minutes again. Like, you just cannot figure it out. It's just impossible to figure out and impossible to nail down, like, when he is going to play minutes versus when he's not.
Right.
I think what hurts him is when Jalen Smith is active, as weird as that sounds, because Jalen Smith then plays backup center. Obi Toppin no longer plays backup center, and they keep Obi Toppin at the 4, and now you don't have like extra wing minutes for Mathurin and extra wing minutes for Heald. But Heald also played 37 minutes last game. So like, I would say if of the two, Buddy Hield is fine at 6,100. He's had a good stretch of games in a row now. 4+ made threes in 3 straight games, 34+ fantasy points in 3 straight. So if you want to get to Buddy Hield of the other Indiana guys, that would be my selection.
Okay. Moving our way down into some value guys we've discussed already. Does like Isaiah Joe maybe pique your interest here at all tonight?
No. I mean, I just don't know what the ceiling is on Isaiah Joe. The problem also, it just always becomes with Isaiah Joe, he's a 0 basically on peripheral stats.
Sure.
And what is he's 4,600. Like, if he was 38, 39, sure. 4,600, we need him to literally score 20 actual to like get us there. So
agreed. Any other value plays at shooting guard for you then?
No, this position sucks.
Small forward then. We do have Kawhi Leonard waiting on that injury news for him. He's $8,900. You got Lauri Markkanen at 86. We got DDR, who was the cover of the show this morning. I don't think we've lost any love for DeMar DeRozan here this evening. Where are we going when it comes to spending up at small forward tonight?
DeMar DeRozan.
I think so.
I mean, he's been super consistent. We haven't gotten like many pop games, I'd say, out of DeRozan, as many as we'd hoped for, but 1.17 fantasy points per minute without Zach LaVine this year. 27% usage rate, really solid. We, like the assist numbers have looked really good without LaVine. Plus 2.9% differential in terms of assists per game without LaVine this year. And he's had a couple like double games, had a couple like near double doubles with the assists. And that's obviously, helps to have Vucevic on the floor for that factor because you have the pick and roll, pick and pop with him. But DDR is just such a good operator with anyone in the lineup. I love this spot. It's one of those where like 1.17 fantasy points per minute without Levine, you can probably, if you're projecting it, like 1.25, 1.3 fantasy points per minute, given the pace up nature and how bad Atlanta is defensively. So it's DeRozan for me, kind of with a bullet in this tier. I was looking at Markkanen a little bit in tournaments because the minutes just got up there quick. He played 39 minutes against Toronto the other day, and he had 39 and 5 with 3 steals. Went for 56.
Yeah,
I know Utah's getting healthy and whatnot, but this is an elite game environment for Utah, and he's their best player. So if you did land on Markkanen, like, good for you. Like, you might get 60. You also might just get 40, and then you're just kind of like, well, I could have probably allocated those funds elsewhere, right? So
I think the biggest difference, obviously, has been the minutes now. He came back and he played 25, 20, 29. You're like, I don't know. If he's going to play 36 and 40, then I'm in, right? So
correct.
I like that a lot. Again, if Wemby's out, even better. Just take that freak off the floor. One less thing to worry about there. So more guys in the mid-tier range. Franz Wagner's here at $7,900. Mikal Bridges went nuclear in that game against Detroit there, 29, 6, and 7. We know this happens, right? Someone on Brooklyn generally has the big night. It was Mikal Bridges on that night. I don't know if he's going to repeat it or not. Keldon came off the bench the other day. He's 72. If he starts, would certainly have some appeal. What are we doing in the mid-tier for small forward?
Franz is fine. Like you, I can never get Franz right. Has big games, has mediocre games. Who knows when they're going to happen, but they happen. And this is definitely a spot that could happen.
Like, I played him in this game against Indy. He had 0 assists.
In the best spot on the board.
The guy's averaging 4 assists per game. He's even given you more than that in the last 4. He played 36 minutes. He had 0 assists. I mean, if he gives me 5 or 6 assists here, he's got 40 fantasy points, right? So, like,
maybe, in that spot, he looks like kind of maybe like even the game prior. Like, if he gives you 4 or 5, he's going like 40, 44, 40, 45. I
have him in 2 battle royal lineups for underdog here tonight. I mean, the numbers against Washington this year are great. 31 actual points, 6-5, 49 fantasy points.
Yep. Yeah, and
you do it, right? Like, can I get it? Can I get him right one time?
That's what Washington can do for you. Like, what can Washington do for you? They can build you. Yeah, I mean, so if you want to get to Franz,
going to play tonight, which is good. He was questionable. They just got the news he's going to be in, so like better potential for that game to hang around for a little while. Like.
Maybe DeLon Wright. Maybe a little keeps the defensive keeps him in check. Keeps Cole Anthony in check coming off the bench.
Yeah, I don't know, but
Keldon. I love Keldon, by the way. If he starts, if there's no Wemby and Keldon starts, love him. 7,200. I think there's a super high ceiling for Keldon Johnson, who I gave him all that love about peripheral stats earlier in the year about like assists and stuff, and now he can only he's doing like more Keldon Johnson things where he's only scoring and rebounding, but 28 and 12 the other day in a game that Wemby did not play. So if we want to go to Keldon, if he's starting, I have a lot of confidence in him there.
Agreed. I just don't, threw me for a loop with him not starting the other
day. Greg Popovich,
ladies and gentlemen. He might have still played the 30 had they not gotten blown out. I mean, who knows what that rotation would have looked like, but still frustrating. I think both Bogdanoviches here are fine. I mentioned Bogdan. I mean, he just keeps playing the ball. Minutes have all been there. No DeAndre Hunter. I know you mentioned Jalen Johnson could be back here tonight, but still, a guy that has a lot of upside. And then just the spacing for Bojan he's been really good for them. Giving a little bit more peripheral stats than we're used to seeing. Loving the minutes here. Most nights he's a better than the 28% 3-point shooter like he's been in 3 of the last 4. So Bojan to me is fine at $6,500. You mentioned liking Sohan. You talked about a little bit of point guard. He's there at small forward as well. The Jaden McDaniels one is something we spent a little time on last night. If Karl-Anthony Towns is out, Jaden McDaniels at $5,800 in a matchup against OKC where he should play the 38, 36, 40 minutes feels pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. 16 shots, I would say, feels very, very ceiling-ish.
Sure.
I don't think we're going to get many 16-shot games out of Jaden McDaniels.
I think it helped that Kyle Anderson is starting with him.
I think it definitely helps that Kyle Anderson starting. I think Edwards had 10 assists. I think that he obviously was a beneficiary of those as well.
You just think who's shooting on the floor, right? Towns, a 28-shot guy off the floor, and they replaced him with Kyle Anderson who takes 6. Right?
It's Edwards plus 4 guys who equally maybe shoot double-digit times when Towns is there.
Right. So
I don't disagree. I don't love $5,800.
Okay.
I get it. I get it. And he's gonna have, probably gonna guard. We're gonna see him on Shea at times. We're gonna see him their length. You always see opposing teams put length on Shea. That's just what they try.
He might switch on to Chet on the perimeter.
I mean, he's a big dude. He's a big dude who can guard 1 through 5. So it wouldn't be surprising. I'm definitely okay getting to McDaniels without Towns. I don't like 0.69 fantasy points per minute without Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't love that.
Probably not a huge sample size on that run though, right?
136 minutes
this year. I guess
not my favorite. And look, I mean, he had 40 minutes. That was a 40-minute sample last game. So obviously, improving. It's just he had a sample in the Lakers game where Towns got hurt in the Lakers game. So it's happened over the last 2 games. Again, I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm also.
We got 220 actual point games out of him in the last 3. So
it's just hard. It's hard for him. I would say, obviously, no Towns, more opportunity to rebound, but Gobert had 20 of them last game. So
The rebounding is going to be tough. I like him generally for the defensive stats. Now this year, again, he hasn't popped as consistently as he did a couple of years ago, where you were getting nightly 3+ block steal games out of him, right? So. I'm also a bit biased. I'm a big Jaden McDaniels guy in general. So I don't like that he's only small forward eligible. I wish he was power forward, small forward. But
let me ask you this, Sean. If there's no Towns, no Vooch, Jaden McDaniels or Pat Will?
Pat Will's in a better pace game, so probably there.
Slightly though, because OKC's playing at the 4th fastest pace in December. They're playing really fast. Pat Will has the better eligibility.
Obviously. I would say we're not going to get 40 minutes out of Drummond if Vucevic was out, right? So if Drummond maybe plays 25, then maybe there's more rebounding opportunity for Pat Will, because I know Gobert's playing 40.
Gobert's playing, as long as there's no foul trouble, he's playing all the minutes.
Yeah, so I might lean Patrick Williams there. Over Jaden McDaniels. Pat Will's also home versus McDaniels on the road there, but we'll see if we get that information sooner rather than later. Tari Eason. What happens here?
This situation is a nightmare.
He's $5,600, which is a pretty good price.
Very, very. I mean, use $6,000, right? For multiple slates. 56 is a good price.
5x at 56 is 28 fantasy points, which he can get in a half. If he's out there. Played 20 minutes against Pelicans, was in foul trouble in that game. Then he obviously missed some time. Tournaments. He was closing games, right?
Closing games, Closing games.
And it's the Pacers. There's a lot of reasons to think that this could be a Tari Eason game.
Ah, boy. Close your eyes and take a shot on one of the Houston frontcourt members, and you'll win a prize, right? Like, I mean, what is the likelihood of one of the three of them breaking the slate against Indiana? Like, it
feels pretty good.
Feels pretty good one of them getting 50 or one of them like Tari Eason going for 45, right?
One of them goes for 7x.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if Eason has 45, like, it's like, all right, well, you needed Tari Eason on a slate with no value. So definitely tournament only play because his minutes fluctuate between now that he doesn't apparently have a cap, between 20 to 33 minutes. So I think that there's a large range of outcome for Tari Eason. Again, massive pace up spot.
Yeah.
Great game environment for Houston specifically. Good
Matches
eligibility.
Up well with their front court.
Matches up well.
Toppin, right? Like,
and I said it. I alluded to it a little bit on the pod. Like, I'm a little worried about like Şengün getting up and down the floor in this spot, or him and Jabari on the same for 30 plus minutes getting up the floor. Like, Eason is more like that athletic, let's get out and run guy. So, I think Eason is perfectly fine in tournaments, especially on a slate where it's kind of dry in the value land. Eason provides serious upside in tournaments.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks, same sort of situation for him. $5,400 here.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks is always a fine last piece in. That could
does he just guard Halliburton tonight?
Whole game, yeah.
Which
is obviously not great, but I mean, they're home, right? Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Houston's really good at home. They've been really good at home all year.
Well, any other values at small forward for you? I mean, Vince Williams is here, $5,100, but obviously we liked him a little bit more when he was 41 or 43, not 51. So
yeah, we also don't know what the Marcus Smart minutes are going to do to Vince Williams, because what if he starts and then they just elect to go Morant, Smart, Bane, which
I think that's what they're gonna do, right? Smart's gonna play the 2, or like he did in Boston at times, and Bane plays the 3. So
there's also a scenario where you're bringing Smart off the bench, or he's starting, but you're staggering him and Morant, right? Mm-hmm. So you always have Smart or Morant on the floor as their point guard.
Sure.
And then that would help Vince Williams, but how much? 5,100 is a sketchy price to get to for a TBD on like minutes kind of thing.
Yeah, they would be a little bit small in their backcourt there if they went the Smart, Bane, Morant route. Bane's
6'5".
Yeah, I mean he's probably like a small forward at this point, the way the league has been trending. But it doesn't necessarily.
He's probably more jacked than all the other small forwards.
That's true. Right? Man is strong there. So, if Champagne starts 4,200,
I don't know.
I would just like to get the Kawhi Leonard news so we can just play Amir Coffee and just move on. So,
or Norm, or like anybody on the Clippers, open up something.
Give us some sort of value here.
Yeah.
Power forward. Again, a lot of questions. The top 3 guys are all questionable here tonight. Paolo, however, is the cover of today's live stream. $8,300 coming off of a 49 fantasy point game against the Pacers. He hasn't had the same success that Wagner's had against the Wizards this season. Only 36 fantasy points in 2 games against them. Does that worry you at all, or are you riding more current form Paolo Banchero here?
Yeah, he's their best player. So I don't necessarily one of those games he played 27 minutes, and then the other game he had 57 fantasy points. So like
back to back.
One of them, that was the ankle sprain game, actually. Sure. He had the ankle sprain, I think, in the first Washington game, because I played him in that game, by the way. I remember it. I played him. He had the ankle sprain. And he didn't return in the 4th, and you're like, what? And then the next day they were like, we didn't tell you? Sprained his ankle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay, cool. No problems getting to Paolo. He's the best player. He leads them 28% usage rate, 28.5% usage rate. Leads them in fantasy points per minute, 1.17 this year. Well, leads Isaac is the leader, but Isaac not playing tonight, so by default, Paolo Banchero, number 1. Yeah, number 1 with a bullet here at power forward for me. I'd be okay getting to like Kawhi if he played at 89, or Towns if he plays at 88. Sure. I think both those guys are fine. Probably not going to play Wemby because he's likely going to be limited. He did go through shoot around, and I don't know if you saw the reports. Apparently, even after he stepped on that kid's foot, the ball boy's foot, he was asking Popovich if he could play. So it seemed like he was fine. But you have to assume he's limited, right? And like, no way he's just going out there and Pop's just like, all right.
I'm certainly not trusting Popovich here. So
no.
Tournaments, if you want to go there, that's fine. He's not cheap. If you're playing 20 lineups, you probably throw Wemby in one or two. But we're giving you some other options certainly to focus in on. What do you do with Zion at this price tag? $7,700. He played a full game against Houston, 49 fantasy points. These are the ceilings we've talked about. We weren't in love with him earlier this season when he was like 9K, but if he's going to be under 8K, there's definitely, decent value return here. 5X at this price point, we're looking at 38.5 fantasy points. I mean, that's more than doable for Zion.
It's funny. I was just looking, as you were saying that, I was just looking at what his price was earlier in the year. And first slate of the year, he was $9,700. So he's a 1.25 fantasy point per minute guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you probably project Zion 32 minutes or so, right? 32 in a competitive game, probably 35 minutes is like the ceiling for Zion, really.
Yeah.
So like,
he had a good run in the middle of the season at 35, 34, 34, 33. So
if you put him at 34, right? Put him in the middle of that, 34 in a competitive game. At 1.25 fantasy points per minute, that's 42.5 fantasy points. And that's just like median projection, right?
Baseline,
that's just base projection. Doing quick math, doing it. He has a super high ceiling because he's impossible to stop at the rim for like any normal human. I mean, not even normal human being, any NBA player, but there's just nights where he goes silent. And is Jaren Jackson going to be a rim protector tonight, or is he going to get in foul trouble? Like, it's TBD on that. So yeah, I love the Zion price, and I'm perfectly fine getting there. Just know, there are games where he disappears and he gets in foul trouble. And
does he have the highest usage rate on the team?
Highest usage rate, Brandon Ingram edges him out slightly. Zion at 28.8, Brandon Ingram at 29.2.
Sure.
But that's also like Ingram. How many games has Ingram played? Ingram's played 3 more games than Zion. So I'm sure like the usage rate during those times where Zion's been out, Ingram just dominated them.
Yeah, you can toggle Zion on the floor.
Yeah, we'll toggle Zion on the floor with we'll toggle Zion on the floor. Yeah, he leads with everyone on the floor.
Okay, yeah,
by a pretty significant margin.
Yeah, he's a monster. So I love that price tag for him. Yep. I also think Miles Bridges here is a guy that you and I talk a lot about. I mean, ton of 40 bombs in his box score this season. If Kawhi is out and they kind of go with like a smaller lineup rotation, I mean, Miles Bridges could be in for a pretty big night here. Another one where we talk about it, like they lose by 31 here and he's on the floor for 37 minutes. They lose by 17. He's on the floor for 38 minutes. It doesn't matter what the score is on these games. Rozier and Miles Bridges are going to play almost 40 minutes tonight. And if Kawhi is out and that ends up being off of some, Clippers backups or, Daniel Tice is protecting the rim or something like that, I think Bridges could be a sneaky tournament play here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard not to like the minutes, right? We know LaMelo's out, Mark Williams doubtful, so Brandon Miller might not play tonight. Like, there's obviously so many question marks with Charlotte. Miles Bridges, when it's just LaMelo and Mark Williams off the floor, second highest usage bump on the team to 26%. That only trails Terry Rozier for guys that play significant amounts of minutes, which I don't think surprises you at all. 0.99 fantasy points per minute, so right at 1 fantasy point per minute. If you play 38 minutes, gets you 40
fantasy points on the baseline. Exactly. Yeah. So I like him again. I like Zion a lot tonight. We like DeRozan. Bridges is just wedged in between those 4 guys, right? Banchero as well, and no one's playing him tonight. But as likely it feels like to go for 45 as any of the other guys are on most slates here. So in on that. If there's no Ayton and Sharp tonight, Jeremy Grant at $7,300. Again, I don't mean to be repetitive when I'm saying like such a great spot, but like this is another guy that's in a great spot tonight if those guys end up being up.
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's like DeAndre Ayton, offensive player first. Shaden Sharp takes a bunch of shots. Like Jeremy Grant made $180 million in the offseason from this team. Like he is now, to be fair, like Anthony Simons is obviously taking the first shot like every time down the floor, and that's become apparent. But Jeremy Grant's no slouch. This is a guy who averages 22 a game. He averaged 20 points a game last year. So like the start that he's off to this year is no fluke. He doesn't have great numbers this year without Shaden Sharp and DeAndre Ayton. Now it's like not the biggest sample, but it is over 100 minutes, 24% usage rate, 0.85 fantasy points per minute. But it is a pace up spot, and he is a guy who has a 40 ball this year to his name. So, or almost a 40 ball. I think he 38, 40, somewhere around there.
34, 38. 38 actually.
Yeah, so he's a guy who
against this team, by the way. It was 46 minutes, so this is either he played overtime or they played all but 2 minutes in that game.
Every minute of the game.
Oh, but he had 38 actual against Sacramento in that game there. So
okay, well, yeah, so 40 ball. I'm not saying Jeremy Grant's gonna go for 40 ball, but you're right. Like he's
it's a good range of guard forwards here too. Grant, Keldon, we've talked about. Jabari's at 71. Keegan Murray keeps knocking down shots at $6,800 here.
Yeah, Jabari, I think, is, has a 60-point ceiling and has a 22-minute floor. And if he's locked in and playing well, then he's going to play. And you don't have to worry about Tari Eason replacing him. Tari Eason will replace Şengün instead. So,
Dylan Brooks,
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple guys that you're potentially losing out minutes to Tari Eason. Keegan Murray, you're right, has been really. I mean, this is a guy. He shot 40% from three last year as a rookie. He made 203 threes or whatever it was. He broke a rookie record for made threes. Like he is really, really good at shooting the basketball. Peripheral stats have definitely been a little better this year. For the last 5 games, over 30 fantasy points. When you go back to like December 11th, I mean, it's 6 of his last 8 over 30 fantasy points. I know you need more at 68, but he has been pretty consistent.
Yeah, agreed. Any value power forwards for you? Do you have any interest in the Atlanta guys here? Bay, Gongwu, if Jalen Johnson returns, anybody here?
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Johnson is really intriguing if there's no limit and it's a wrist injury. So I kind of expect him to not be limited. He plays a lot of minutes for this team in the games prior to the injury. 36, 31, 36, 33, 40 minutes for Jalen Johnson in all those games. 2 40 bombs over that span. Great matchup against Chicago. So I would like Jalen Johnson. Saddiq Bey with DeAndre Hunter, Saddiq Bey is poised to just keep playing 30 plus minutes. Now, without Jalen Johnson and DeAndre Hunter, Saddiq Bey is playing 40 minutes. So I don't think that's going to continue. But he is going to probably play mid 30s. That's where you land. That's where you land. And Gongwu, kind of like, I could still see them going to the double big lineup, but like, is that something you're going to do against Chicago? What if Chicago doesn't have, like, they might not have a backup center? You're not going to go double. You're going to go double big against who? Terry Taylor as the backup center for the Bulls. Like he's 6'5". So, yeah, a little indifferent on both. I would love to play Cam Johnson at 59, but he just doesn't play minutes. He just 28 minutes seems to be like the absolute ceiling at this point. It's just another.
Tari Eason, by the way, is checking in at 17% rostership here tonight. Patrick Williams is checking at 25% rostership. So we talked about the lack of value. Two small forward power forwards on DraftKings getting a lot of love here, probably for their positional flexibility, but they're also under 6K. So probably reasons for the love there. And the other power forwards here, would you mess around in any of the Pacers guys?
No, but I do have a question. No to the Pacers guys. Yes, sure. I guess question on and it's a strict ownership question, and I already think I know your answer. Chicago Bull, great. Daylon Terry, former first-round pick for the Chicago Bulls. He's $3,400. He is averaging 16 minutes per game over his last 5. He has only once scored double-figure fantasy points. Have you seen his ownership tonight? 15%.
What do you got?
15%. 15%.
Okay.
Like, that is because he is like the only person under 4K playing like any minutes, right? Is that
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think most people, that is maybe even just an early projection that Vucevic maybe doesn't play. Like,
no, because I mean, I guess, but like Vooch is getting ownership tonight. The Bulls are like the most popular team.
I just don't imagine that you're getting that kind of ownership without some people. That roster should maybe reflecting people putting him in lineups with the assumption that Vuk is out. Because why else would you play him?
Price.
But like,
I'm more so advocating for to not.
I would not touch this guy at all unless there was a very clear, unless Vucevic was out. Not even close. Wouldn't even come close to it.
I don't even know if I don't even know if I would at that point.
Wouldn't touch it. All right, center spot. He gets a bonus at 97 against Portland. We know certainly went for 56, 27, 11, and 9. If there's no 8, and it's even a better matchup for Sabonis here. Şengün's been breaking slates last couple of games there. 34, 11, and 6, 22, 15, and 3. He is at $8,700. Vucevic, if he's in, gets Atlanta. Gobert, like I like Gobert a lot tonight, but like what's your feel for the top half of the center position tonight?
I mean, I love Sabonis. Back-to-back triple doubles, 3 in his last 4 games, and 2 of those have been 60 balls. You know, it's a great game environment in that Sacramento Portland game. 236.5 game total is the 3rd highest on the board. So if you want to get to Sabonis, by all means do so. I wouldn't even mind if DeAndre Ayton is active, because I don't think DeAndre Ayton and his flat-footedness can really hang with the actions that Sacramento runs through Sabonis.
Yeah.
Like,
Ayton is currently the highest projected center on the slate. So
yeah, it's interesting because
if he gets ruled out, and it's a late game. So if people are throwing Ayton in there, I guess it's obvious that there's going to be. I'm trying to think, like if 20% of the field is putting DeAndre Ayton in their lineup, not knowing if he's in or out tonight, then there's multiple exposures to the late night slate here on DraftKings because they want the pivot availability. So just know that when you're building your lineups, that if the field is playing Ayton the way we're seeing it, then late night's going to have some exposure on DraftKings. Obviously, on FanDuel, that game doesn't exist. Over on FanDuel, the highest rostered center play here tonight is Şengün. So he's at 20%, which feels pretty good, right? Makes sense.
Yep, makes sense. I also, just to your point about like the late night window, one of the other highest owned plays of the slate is Brandon Miller. So like both questionable. 2 guys that are both questionable, literally solely because you're like, okay, if they're out, I now have pivots. Like that's and if they're in, like Miller has good flexibility. I'm fine with Ayton at 68 because he's like a pretty good fantasy point.
Well, happily play Duop Reef,
and then you go from Miller to what? You go from Miller to
Bridges.
Like, I mean, if Kawhi's out, you go like Paul George.
Yeah,
or like
I said Bridges, but I mean
Bridges, yeah.
So.
But to your point, whole center position is really good. I love Vucevic if he plays tonight. At 8K, his price is kind of coming down too. Like he got all the way up to like mid 8s. He's been very up and down. I feel really good about on night to night basis, especially without Levine. Like, okay, who has a chance to get me 20 and 10 from the center spot? Like Vooch is definitely up there.
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, I like Gobert a lot tonight. Didn't have any issues in this match the first time around. 48 fantasy points, 17 and 16 there. Coming off 37 and 39 minutes, fantastic. That 39-minute game against Sacramento, there was no Towns. 21 and 17. We know the blocks are there. The rebounds will be there. And I just think that, the physicality he can bring in the inside there against the Thunder tonight. Again, Chet Holmgren's been great, and he's certainly proven his ability to hang, with some of the tougher centers. Even he had a really good game against Minnesota earlier this year, but good price for Rudy Gobert right now. Zion's actually the second highest roster center on the slate, but obviously the dual positional eligibility helping him out there. What's your thoughts on Valanciunas, Capella, and this other mid-tier range? All of a sudden, Zach Collins, probable, but I mean, I don't think you remember him being probable last night, right?
No.
Threw a tag on him this afternoon,
Yeah, threw a tag on him. The guy I would go to the mid-tier is probably Nick Claxton. I think that there's really high upside for – you talked about it. Brooklyn has somebody going to break the slate. And I don't think traditionally we don't think Nick Claxton, because he's not going to go out and give you a 30 bomb like Bridges or Cam Thomas will. But he is a guy who can get you 15 rebounds. He is a really good shot blocker at times. So this is a big pace-up spot. Month of December, and I put this in the DFS playbook. I found this interesting. Detroit is the fourth fastest team, or sixth fastest team in pace. Excuse me. Nets are 17th. That's a good pace-up spot for Brooklyn. Yeah. I like Claxton here. It's not going to play more than 30 minutes. Another guy that they're seemingly a little uncomfortable extending, but he is really good on the glass, really good defensively, really good in pick and roll and catching lobs and creating offense on his own. Yeah. So 600-700 sure. Claxton probably the guy I would get to in the mid-tier.
Okay. Yeah, I know Capella's apparently had some good success against Chicago and Vucevic specifically over the course of his career, apparently, based off some betting touts. If you believe those last 50 matchups head-to-head, great numbers. He's been pretty good lately. So $6,900 there. Any other value centers for you here? Richards playing all the minutes for Charlotte?
Yeah, he can. Zubats has been pretty good shot blocking, pretty good defensively, but if you want to get to him, that's fine. Beantown, the reason Orlando has been bad against centers is because Wendell Carter Jr. has not been there, and it's been Goga Batadze and Mo Wagner getting all the run. I'm not saying Wendell Carter's out here playing 30 minutes. He's not, but 20 minutes of Wendell Carter does matter defensively for Orlando. So I have little to no interest in Gafford at 63. If I lose to Daniel Gafford at 63, so be it. I know he has a ceiling. I'm not saying he doesn't.
2 of the last 4 games against Phoenix and Portland, he's broken the slate. So
I know it's just why I know, but 6,300 against Orlando. It's just
I know.
Massive pace down spot.
I agree. It's not my favorite spot on the board there, Beantown, but if you need the money, sure. Tournaments, just know what the ceiling is on him. I would rather play Richards, or for a little bit cheaper, knowing that the minutes are going to be locked in there. Of course, if Vucevic gets ruled out, we kind of talked way too long about this on the stream this morning, but we're all in on Andre Drummond. The man has been really. We've toyed with playing him in 15-minute stints this year. Again, he played 19 minutes against San Antonio. He had 12 and 8 for 37. He played 16 minutes against the Lakers at 11 and 7. Where was the dumb game that he had? Was it this one? Yeah, 14 minutes. 14 minutes, 9 and 16 in 14 minutes. 13 minutes. He had a double against Milwaukee. Maybe he just eats Milwaukee. I don't know. Brook Lopez doesn't want to rebound against them, but 12 minutes against Orlando, 9 and 14, 15 minutes against Detroit, 11 and 13. He doesn't need a lot of time to be really good. And now if you're going to tell me that they might add 10 minutes on to what he's been doing, some pretty nice potential here.
That was my question. What do you think the minutes look like?
I didn't think Denver was going to give DeAndre Jordan 40 minutes, and they did. So I guess I don't know. Right?
Literally. If DeAndre Jordan wasn't in foul trouble, if he wasn't in foul trouble that game, he plays 40 minutes.
Yeah. And he still played a whole bunch of minutes and broke him and Reggie Jackson smashed the slate that night, right? So, if Andre Drummond goes out and plays 35 minutes tonight, he's going to have way too many fantasy points. So
Yeah, what percentage is he in tournaments? If
Right now, he's only 12.
No, I know. If Vooch is ruled out,
50.
okay. I'll go higher.
I mean,
I'll go higher because what if
60? So
yeah. Well, what if everyone else plays? He's gonna be like
Sure.
100%. He's gonna be like 100% owned because everyone seemingly other than Bruce Brown is gonna play.
if you don't get the news, would you just build a lineup with Drummond anyways and just hope you get his 15 minutes, 8 and 12? I mean,
Well, I guess the good thing is you look at the centers in the first two games. I mean, other than Claxton, you don't really need to worry about it.
well, it's not necessarily the centers, but it's like if you're building lineups with like Banchero or Cade or whatever, you want the value potentially.
That's fair.
Because if you don't play that game, then you just don't play the first two games, and there's obviously some guys in good spots there. So
yeah, I mean, you could probably get away with still playing Banchero, but you can't like spend up anywhere else.
Right.
Like you're just that's like you're playing like two mid-tier guys and then or like two 8K guys and then mid-tier. Just mid-tier across.
Where if you knew the Vucevic news enough, that opens up money. Or if you just committed to playing Drummond, it's say screw it. I'm just going to put Drummond in my lineups now and do what I want. So
I mean, the fact that there's still that many people getting to Drummond shows you that like that is a thing.
I'll say this, that I'll put my Drummond 15% versus the Terry 15% every day of the week.
Oh well, I mean that is. I think wouldn't we? I think to be fair, if I was told before the slate that Drummond was going to play 15 minutes and Dalen Terry was going to play 30, I would still play Andre Drummond over Dalen Terry.
Jalen Smith is also getting some decent run here tonight.
Yes, well, he's just a fantasy point per minute freak.
But another guy that's playing no minutes. So
well, he did have 5,000.
Well, sure,
5,000
into the game with 3. So like he checks in with 3 fouls. So
yeah, fair.
All right, let's build a lineup here. How are we approaching this?
I mean, we have to approach it like everyone's in.
Okay, so you don't want to go Drummond. You want to just
nope, I didn't say that. Okay. We just talked about it. If we want to play, if we're gonna go Drummond, we can play Drummond.
Let's see. Let me pull up the FanDuel slate for you there, Beantown.
All right, let's see. So FanDuel 8,800 Şengün is good. John talked about Gobert 84 on FanDuel, obviously block upside. Vooch 85 is fine.
Yeah, Gafford is 65, and he is basically the value. He is basically the value center. We didn't talk Biyombo. Biyombo's 47. Obviously, he played 30 minutes in that game. Could see that minutes again against Valanciunas. Drummond's up to 57, so that's kind of like a tough.
What if Jalen Duren wasn't limited 30 minutes? Like if he's 6K,
you'd at least get the news.
Yeah, we will get the news.
I'd almost rather play Zach Collins at 66 than Gafford at 65, I think.
Same. Because we know, like, look at the games. You get the Wemby limited 20 minutes. Collins plays 28, and he goes for last 3 games, 27 to 28 minutes, 36 plus fantasy points.
Mm-hmm. And if Jalen Johnson's ruled out, you could always just play Gunku at 63.
Yep, agreed.
So, again, Bean, I'm not as out on Gafford as James is, but because he has gone for 50 plus in 2 of the last 3, and he is a guy on FanDuel especially. I mean, some good block games in there.
I understand it. I'm not saying I don't understand it. I'm just saying, like, there's a reason why their defense interior hasn't been as good with Wendell Carter.
Yeah,
without Wendell Carter.
Yep. Again, he's not a no-go for me. There are obviously some guys that are around him that seem okay. So if your lineup builds are getting you there, I agree. FanDuel does not have any value centers here. Again, Jalen Smith is 39. That is someone that people are getting to tonight, but obviously there's certainly some real risk with him if you just want to straight punt the position. Otherwise, again, you have Drummond up to 57. If Vucevic was to be ruled out, that's where I think the FanDuel Gafford thing kind of hurts you. is that if Vucevic was to get ruled out, Trae Young in, by the way, that news just came through, and you already locked in Gafford, anybody who didn't play the 7 p.m. centers are now pivoting to Drummond and getting that value. So you're almost better off playing Zach Collins at the 8 o'clock start. And then if Vucevic gets ruled out, play Andre Drummond, and now you can kind of pivot your lineups around Bean. So I might go in that direction personally.
Agreed.
All right, let's build then. I'll just plug Drummond in. You seem like you're okay with that regardless.
Yep.
Then Trae Young's news. So I guess we'll go in Trae here.
MB?
Who?
Or Andrew Nembhard?
Nembhard, sure. Small forward?
Do you want to play DeRozan or Paolo?
Yeah, DeRozan.
I feel like it's one of the two, right?
Vucevic out. We got the news.
Wow. Okay, so now we're definitely playing. Now it's definitely the answer. Is definitely
but it's sad is that everybody's not playing Drummond. But Beantown, plug in Drummond right there. Plug him in.
Yeah, there you go. All that time wasted because you're
all that time wasted. Now you can go play Drummond at 57, like the field is going to do.
Pat Will.
Yeah, Patrick Williams for
stacking
sure.
Stacking bulls here.
We're just gonna stack this game,
right? Caruso. Would you rather Williams or Caruso?
I don't know. Caruso's such an aggro player.
He's gonna be guarding.
Probably too. Yeah, I think I'd rather Patrick Williams.
Let's see what we're looking at here. No Vooch, no Levine, no Torrey Craig. That's a lot of people out for Chicago. Andre Drummond.
1.5 probably.
1.4 2 fantasy points Reddit. DeMar DeRozan 1.35. Kobe White 1.22. Caruso 0.87. Pat Will 0.82.
Yeah, so it's close.
Neither guy like big usage rate, obviously. Pat Will actually much higher usage rate than Caruso. So
yeah.
Let's stay here.
All right, let's get another. Is there any other value we can just play? I wish we could just get
Wemby in.
Wemby in. Okay. Well, we weren't really like. I think we knew that.
Went their shoot around today.
There's really just not like any other value though, man. It's such a kick. Like I kind of wish like Champagne was in the lineup just so I could just play him. Right.
Jalen Johnson officially available to play.
All right.
I don't know if there is...
Would you play Jalen Smith for some value just to get like a Tari Eason maybe here 50s?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel as bad, I guess, about Jalen Smith now that we know. Like, it would have felt really gross to play Smith and Drummond if we didn't know, like, if Drummond was not starting, right? That would probably be like a pretty bad feeling,
right? Because 67, Bogdan.
67, Jaden Ivey.
You like Ivey against Brooklyn?
Yeah, he was really good. I mean, he was.
It's just like I mean, we've been getting ceiling games from him, so
yep.
We could also plug in like Miller and just see it and like kind of wait out the late slate here.
We could. Yeah, we could.
Daron Sharp at 5K, says Hartley.
I mean, I like Daron Sharp, but I'm not paying. I'm probably not going to play him at 5K. He's like, I mean, is he not Andre Drummond-ish? I mean, there's a chance he gets blowout run here.
Keldon off the bench.
It's just so disgusting.
I mean, if we did that, then I guess like Branham starts. I know you're not a big Branham guy, but like, does that 56 util open up anything if we take Jimmy off the floor? Not really. What's killing us here? Would you move off Trae to get to Fox at all?
Yeah. Yep, I would.
Or like Rozier?
I mean, I like De'Aaron Fox. I like Rozier. Either one. I like that entire like top tier pricing.
I'm just thinking like if we get, it's just some more money here. Like because if Rozier,
we don't have to spend up either. We could just play Paolo if we wanted to. Like
well, because I like the Rose, and we're not really spending. The problem is we're not spending up. There's no value on the slate, right? So even with Rozier and DeRozan, 2 8K players, we can only afford another 7K. Jalen Williams is in now for OKC, so that even hurts that there. But like Jabari, right? Are you afraid to run both Eason and Jabari together?
Yeah, because I mean they could directly affect one another.
Okay.
You know?
Keegan at 68.
He has obviously he has a kind of insane ceiling. I don't. This year is a little like Jordan Clarkson is probably the guy I would click on in this tier. That's a great game environment, but I don't necessarily love this tier in general.
Yeah, I mean there's Cody Zeller. That's not doing anything for us here. Like I wouldn't even know like where else to really. Does this get us? Maybe like Zion? No, or like just off Zion if we go to Anthony Simons.
Yeah, I mean we could.
Well, actually, I guess we could do that then. Hold on, Zion. This is Caruso, right? 5,500 detail.
54. Yeah. Yep. Works. Just switch Simons and Caruso, obviously, in case of emergency for Anthony Simons.
It can't anymore. You can do Nembhard though, right? Nembhard is
Nembhard's point guard.
So Caruso, Nembhard, Simons, and then that gets us Zion, which I like there. Yep. Larry Nance ruled out, helping Zion's case. So yeah, tournament lineup for everybody here. Nembhard, Caruso, DeRozan, Zion, Drummond, Branham, Eason, and Simons for everybody. $100 left over. Playbook is out. Grande is obviously doing the updating here. And I'll just throw up our holiday promo here one last time. Those of you not yet already a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, our holiday sale ends today. Right now, you will get our All-Pro subscription package for just $4 for the first month. That's $1 a week for the first month here. So you can scan that QR code. You can go to fantasyalarm.com/Santa, putting that link in the chat right now as well. And when you sign up using promo code Santa, the first month is just $4, $1 a week for all of our premium content, including our premium Discord. It's not just NBA, it's NBA, the rest of the NFL season, NHL. Our MLB draft guide is coming out this in January, so you'll actually have access to the Fantasy Baseball draft guide when that gets launched next month as well. PGA starts up soon. MMA DFS is always going on. So if it's behind the paywall, you'll get it for the next month for just $1 a week. So you can check it all out there. DePrince, no real interest in Aaron Wiggins for me with Jalen Williams in. Nope. Healthy lineup. Josh Giddey's back as well, so I don't really see much from Prince, not much from Wiggins here this evening. Get in that Discord again. Click on the link there. Go to fantasy.com/Santa. We'll be there till roster lock tonight, updating you guys on all of the news as it breaks. We'll be back tomorrow. Obviously, we'll have a live stream at 5 o'clock Eastern time. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We do shows throughout the week, and we'll catch you all later.